The Bachmann Class 90 is now going through its second series of models, following its arrival in 2019. I've had a couple of those original models for some time now, and earlier this year I made the decision to add sound to one of the models while at the same time cancelling my Class 91 pre-order. It's time to take a closer look at the Class 90 and the reasons why I chose to step back from Hornby's Class 91. Thanks for joining today's review, where I will cover both my own specific Class 90 models and the entire range, including the latest models that are now available. I will kick off with a quick unboxing, followed by a close-up view and a 360-degree view. We'll then get into a brief running session, followed by a summary, scoring and final recommendation. As part of the unboxing, I will cover the addition of a DCC decoder to this locomotive. I will cover the reasons why I chose to step back from the Hornby Class 91 and double down on the Class 90 as part of the unboxing and the summary. Okay, let's get underway. Okay, so I've got a Class 90 here from Bachmann. It's the 32610, which is in the Intercity Swallow livery, locomotive number 90005. Financial Times is the name of the locomotive. So this was the first of the intercity versions of the Class 90 from Bachmann. They are introducing another one. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. It's the one I picked up, and I guess the story behind this is I had been waiting for the Class 91 from Hornby, and had a number of obviously kind of negative experiences with Hornby, and I also thought about how I was going to use this particular locomotive, and I came down and said maybe I'd better get a Class 90 instead from Bachmann, and it'll probably be a bit more of a bit more certainty as to what it will deliver, and we're going to find out what it delivers in this review. Okay, so it comes in a kind of standard packaging. It does have a motorized pantograph, and so there is this warning label on the front here, and that you do need to use a specific DCC decoder with a particular control output that will be able to drive that properly, or else you'll damage it. You'll damage the servo motor, and it just won't work again for you, which wouldn't be nice. So something like if you use one of the kind of Locksound 5 sound decoders, for example, and that's what they've fitted into this now. So this actually does have a sound decoder in it. Then that does have the correct drive function for the pantograph, so that will work fine. Okay, so that's the good thing. If you're going to get sound option, then if you get it for a Class 90 Bachmann, it'll have that built in, and you won't have to worry about it. Let's take it out of the box. It comes in the standard packaging, and it comes with the kind of usual documentation. So this came DCC ready, this particular model. Now I have fitted a decoder to it. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on. This comes with the standard information, and I've also fitted the detailing kit, so we'll take a look at that when we take it out of the box. It has these interesting buffers, and I've put in the valance at the front, and I have installed the sound decoder in this model. This just talks about the CV settings for the pantograph, etc., the lights. So you've got this. You do have the day-night mode operation as well, which is good, and I've configured it for that, so we'll see that in the running session. So the basic information for the standard DCC ready model. It comes with etched nameplates, which is nice. Some people like to add those, so I'll put those in the box. And it does come with the detailing kit, and as I say, I have added the detailing kit, so you can see I've removed the front coupler there, and I've got you got two sets of valances, front and rear. I've only installed the front one, so we'll take a look at that when we take it out. It comes in the standard Bachmann packaging, I guess, which is good to a point. I think it's adequate. Not as good as the DAPOL packaging. You can see there is some extra protection put in there now for the pantograph, and it's a heavy locomotive, obviously, from Bachmann, and it is, I think it's a pretty nice looking locomotive. So we'll do the normal 360 views, but you've got your pantograph here. It comes in at a kind of a locked position. You need to unlock it before you start using it. So the detailing kit has has been fitted to the front of this. I guess the first thing you'll notice is there's no driver. So for some reason or another, Bachmann have decided not to put drivers into these. I'm not quite sure what the background to that is. It's a bit disappointing. Put the valance on here, as you can see, and this is a nicely detailed model. There's a lot of detail in the bogies, as you can see, a lot of detail in the underbody there. We'll look at that when we do the close-up view. I think there's just moulded detail around the doors, the handles, etc., the handrails there, which is fine. And then you've got the actual top level detail and the pantograph. So we'll look at that in a minute. So overall, it is a nice looking model. As I said, it is, and you have to be careful when you hold it. It is heavy. It's got a reasonable weight on it. It has these interesting buffers, so it does have sprung buffers, and they kind of spring with a locking position, so you can kind of lock them into place. So you can pop them in and turn them over like that, and it stays in a kind of locked position, so that's kind of emulating the real life prototype. And so you just take it out, twirl it around, and it'll come back to its normal position again. Okay, so that's on. You have that on the front and rear buffers on this, so that's a kind of a nice added feature. So it's a nicely rendered livery, intercity swallow livery. So we're going to run this with a rake of Mark III coaches, and I'm going to run it with the Mark III driving trailer as well, the Hornby one. So that's the kind of representative train we'll put together. Now, I guess before we kind of go any further in the review, it's kind of why did I choose to go down the route of the Class 90? And one was the uncertainty regarding the 91 from Hornby, and the other one was the use of this particular model. I think the configure, I really didn't want to invest in another £300–400 in a rake of Mark IV coaches and driving trailer from Hornby, along with the locomotive. I just, given my recent experiences, that was just going to be not on anymore. So I didn't want to do that. I wanted to reuse my existing Mark III intercity coaches and the driving trailer I'd already purchased from Hornby. And this will give me more usage of that. This would have been a more mainstream configuration with the Class 90 than if I just ran the Class 91, for example, with my Mark IIIs, which you could do. But that was only a kind of an interim configuration. It wasn't that was only when there was a transition happening between the HSTs and with the Mark IIIs and the newer Class 91s and the Mark IV coaches. So that I would have been kind of running with an interim configuration with the Class 91 if I didn't invest in the Mark IV coaches. Whereas this is a pretty standard configuration with the Mark III coaches and the Mark III driving trailer. So I've kind of saved myself having to get another rake of coaches, expensive Mark IV coaches from Hornby, which I really didn't want to do. And I can stick my existing Mark IIIs and get good use of them with this. And also I do have a view that this is probably going to be a better offering overall once we're finished this review. So in the review here, we're going to put sound into this, and we will then also take a look at this guy in terms of his running performance, obviously, and see how she performs on the track. Okay, I wanted to show you the DCC installation for this. So there are 4 screws in the underbody. Either side there, you have to move the bogies to actually get access to them. And when you remove those screws, you will see this part of the roof will actually start to raise up, and you can just simply remove it then. Which is kind of handy. And then you've got your standard 21 pin socket that you can install. The sound speaker is pre-installed, so you don't need to do anything there. Now, if you want to start fiddling around with the speaker, then you're going to have to go and start opening up the model to a greater level. Whereas I think this is, at least this is a relatively modest level of intrusion into the model, I think for the purpose of adding DCC. Not quite as good as the Irish Railway model's A-Class locomotive, which had a kind of a magnetic piece on the top that you could remove, so there's no screws involved in that. Here you've got to actually go and open up 4 screws, but still it's a lot more convenient than actually going and doing anything else with it. So it is worth taking a look at. The other thing, I guess, and I'll just open this guy up here now. This guy's a little bit rigid. He's a bit hard to open. They do show you that you can open up this little cap separately. So if you're running on DC only, you've got the option of opening up this little guy here, and you can then access the dip switches. I'll just take it out there, the 3 dip switches that are underneath for controlling the lighting functions under DC. So if you're not using DCC, that gives you a means of controlling that, the kind of nighttime running, etc. So it's a little bit hard to open this guy, which I'm not 100% happy with the fact that it is, and that you're there trying to muck around with it. It's easier to open it actually when you use the top off like this. So that's the installation of DCC. It is pretty good. It's not totally flawless, I guess, but it's a lot better than opening up the full body and impacting the contacts for the lights, which has been an awful burden on some of the older Bachmann models, and on the Hornby models as well, because once you open them, then the contacts for the lights can get loose, and then your cab lights stop working, etc., etc. So it's a nice feature for adding DCC. So I'll just show you that bit. So I think the next thing we're going to do is we'll do a close-on view of this. So far so good. It feels good. It looks good. It's a delicate enough model, so you have to be careful in the hand, because there's a lot of bogie detail, a lot of underbody detail, and obviously detail on the roof as well. So far so good with this model. I think we'll do the close-up view now. Then we'll get it out on the track. We'll run it with the Reka Mark IIIs with the Mark III driving trailer on that, see how she performs with that, and then we'll get into the rest of the review in terms of the summary and the scoring, etc. Okay, let's go to the next part of the review. Okay, we're going to get into the close-up view. So we're going to take the normal side-on view here of the intercity locomotive, and I think you can see the fantastic bogie detail there. A very nice paint registration across the entire model. A lot of good detail at the front there, and we'll get the front and back when we do the 360 views. So this is probably my favorite livery for this locomotive, and I think I probably would share that with a lot of people. Again, you see a lot of good underbody detail in the middle area there, and I also got the pantograph and the electrical works on the top. And again, you've got some fantastic bogie detail. You've got the nice vents along the side. And then you go up to the door area and the front. I suppose the only thing really missing here is kind of separately fitted handrails. The metal handrails would have been nice, but overall a very nice rendition of the livery and a very nice level of detail, and a really fabulous level of detail in the underbody area in particular. Okay, so now we'll get into the 360 view, and this gives us a look at the front and back. Interestingly, there's no windscreen wipers on these models, which again is in line with the prototype. You've got the distinctive front grille and lighting there, and you've got those retractable buffers, which we saw earlier on. And you've got a good level of detail kind of pre-assigned to the model. And then in this case, I've added the valance on one of the ends and added the detailing kit on that end as well. So you get to see that here as it comes around. And you pretty well get that with all of the models. There are some variations, obviously depending on which model you have, what sort of capabilities it has in terms of those retractable buffers, etc. But all of them will come with the detailing kit with the valances and the pipework. So really nice looking model overall, and as I said, this is probably my favorite livery for the Class 90 from Bachmann. Okay, now we're going to get into the running session. So in turning on the sound, the pantograph actually raises as part of that. And you'll see that when you look at the separate running session that I have for this. So I'll put a link to that in the description, and that actually does cover the startup sequence, which includes the pantograph being elevated. And the pantograph is configurable, so you can configure the pantograph for a different height, and you can also configure the speed of elevation, so that makes it really very nice feature. Here we're running with a rake of 6 Mark III coaches and a Mark III DVT, which is absolutely no problem for this locomotive. You could easily expand that rake, but I'm running on a relatively small layout here, so I think this is a large enough rake for this running session. What can I say? This model is really smooth and gave me absolutely no problems at all during the running session. So despite all the kind of underbody detail, etc., there's no catching, there's nothing like that going on. Really good over the point work, diamonds, all of that, and able to get up to the full 110 mile an hour prototypical scale speed, which we're running at now. And really was a really excellent runner all through the running session. I actually really enjoyed running with this locomotive next to the HSTs. And this is probably a better speed, because the HSTs at their top speed are probably running a little bit too fast for a typical model railway layout, whereas 100 to 110 miles an hour that this runs at as a kind of prototypical speed is probably much more acceptable to run in your layout. And I really just found this a joy to run, and I just really love running this train actually on the layout. And I think this particular configuration with the Mark III coaches and the Hornby DVT is really, really good. So very impressive, really good running session overall, and I really have to praise this locomotive. Bachmann have done an excellent job here. This is a really top-notch running locomotive, as well as a really nice looking locomotive as well. And I guess it sets a yardstick which the Class 91 from Hornby will have to meet. Okay, so let's get into the summary. So first off, we're going to take a look at the 2019-2020 range of the Class 90 from Bachmann. There was 3 main models here in the Freightliner, Intercity and the Rail Freight liveries. And there was also a DCC decoder, the 36569, which had the capability for controlling the pantograph. So the recommended retail price for these models was $179.95. There was no sound equipped models at this point in time, so essentially you had to add sound yourself. So you see the 3 liveries there below, and so 2 of these I have. I have the Freightliner and the Intercity one, which is the one we've been looking at. So the range has expanded significantly in the 2021-2022 timeframe, and I've kind of captured here most of what I'm aware of, and there are some special editions on here. These are the ones with the asterisks. There's a good range of new liveries here, which is fantastic, and the other fact is that there are sound equipped models as well. So I've kind of called those out, and they tend to have the either ASF or SF at the very end of them, or KDS there. You'll see the third one down. Prices did change, so there was an increase in the prices of these models, unfortunately, and the recommended retail price for the DCC ready versions, that did increase up to the $229.95 level. So you will tend to find that in the kind of £195 range from the retailers. And I guess the other thing just to maybe call out here is you will see the price of the sound equipped versions. Obviously, again, the recommended retail price is $329.95, which is a pretty hefty price. But again, if you shop around, you will see that coming for $263, and the likes of Rails of Sheffield are selling it at that sort of price. There is a new decoder, and this is to align with these particular locomotives. There was some issues, or reported issues, on the controller board for the original 2019 locomotives, which did cause some problems under DCC in terms of your ability to program with the decoder installed in the actual locomotive. Now, I didn't have that problem with the 2 models that I have, but it has been reported, so you may see an issue there, and it did require people to actually program the DCC decoder in a separate locomotive offline, basically from this particular locomotive, and then install it in, and it had to do with some capacitors, etc., on the controller board. So haven't been able to validate that problem myself, but there have been some reports of that, so that's maybe something just to keep an eye out of. You'll see some commentary on the DC Kits webpage with regard to this, and I'll put a link to that in the description. So that's the range. So let's talk about the capabilities. They've all got this highly detailed servo-operated pantograph. It's got height and speed configurable via your CVs. It's got sprung buffers, and these are retractable where it's applicable to the particular model. It's got full depth cab interior, but unfortunately there is no driver, which I would have liked to have seen. It's got the independent head and tail light control and also the cab light control separate. So you can configure for kind of nighttime, daytime operation, and you can configure for train mode, led from either end of the locomotive. So got a good level of control over the lighting. It's got the easy roof access to the DCC decoder, and you saw that earlier in the unboxing. Runs on a minimum radius 2 curves. I have run it on radius 1 curves. It seems to be a little bit tight on the curves, but it does actually run, which is good to see, and it runs very securely and safely on radius 2 and beyond. It comes with a pre-fitted speaker, so you don't need to install a speaker if you're going to enable sound. Unboxed weight is 489 grams, which for a locomotive of this size, because this is a relatively small locomotive, that's a pretty good weight. Top scale speed that I tested it at was 110 miles an hour, and that was with the sound decoder installed, which was obviously configured for that. So it does deliver the prototypical scale speed, and that's at a current draw of 230 milliamps. That's with the 6 Mark III coaches in the DVT. So that's probably what you'd kind of expect. It's a pretty low power consumption for such a load at top speed. Retail selling prices, kind of summarizing them here. Anything from 165.95 all the way up to 229.95 for the DCC ready, and the sound equipped model starting at 263 to all the way up to 329.95. So it is worth shopping around for these models. And certainly I think getting a sound model, you should be paying somewhere in the region of 280 or less. So let's get into the scoring. So first up, I'm going to give the running performance a 10 out of 10. I did find this a really excellent running model, and I really can't flaw the running performance. I didn't have any issues whatsoever with it, both from a functional perspective, the prototypical speed, adherence, low speed operation over radius 2, radius 3, curves, diamonds, etc. It really didn't give me any sort of problems at all. No problems with the train, and either in push or pull mode. So really pleased with the running on this locomotive. It's a really superb running locomotive. Appearance 9.5 out of 10. It's really good on the appearance stakes as well. I'm probably just being a little bit nitpicky here. I would have liked something like the separately fitted handrails, for example, and probably a little bit, some improvements probably around the roof area, I think, as well. Underbody area, I can't see that it's absolutely perfect. You couldn't ask for more detail. The overall paint application of the livery, etc., I can't ask for anything more than there. They're all top notch. So just some minor items. It's not quite a 10 out of 10, but it's very close to it, and really this is a superb model. Extras and variants. Giving a 9 out of 10 here. It is missing the driver. I would have liked to have had the driver installed. That's just a pity. Don't know why they changed tack on this. At the time of the original version of this, it was relatively limited in terms of variants, but a lot of variants are now starting to appear, and obviously there's sound equipped variants as well, and there's also a weathered variant appearing as well. So I think this is a very strong 9, and could improve over time. But I say I'd have loved to have seen that driver added in there. The build quality and packaging, this is mainly to do with the packaging. The build quality, I think, is excellent. The packaging is kind of standard Bachmann packaging, which does fall a little bit short than, say, the Dapple packaging. So, for the packaging, it'd be a 4 out of 5, and the build quality would be 5 out of 5. Price value, this is probably where it falls down a bit, because it is a pricey locomotive. For the DCC model at the £195 level, which is pretty well comparable with the retailer price for the Class 91 from Hornby. I'd put that at a 6 out of 10. And you do also have the extra cost of the specific DCC decoder to go with that. So that's not great, unfortunately, for if that's the line you're going with. Now, if you go for the sound fitted model, and I've taken this at the 270 level, and you can get it even a little bit cheaper than that, I'm giving you an 8 out of 10. Because that gives you all of the sound capability, it gives you all of the control of the pantograph as well, at a reasonable price. It's not cheap at 270, but it's closer to the pack, put it that way, in terms of a DCC sound equipped model in 2022. And certainly this is better value than say the Class 91 from Hornby, because right now
You've no option, you've no sound option with that from Hornby. There is no TTS option at this point in time for the Class 91. So if you go with the Class 91, you're going to have to purchase a separate decoder, which is typically another 115 to 120 pounds. So that's going to put you way over 300 pounds for that model. So this is where it does start to get expensive, the 91 relative to this particular model. So overall score is a 9 out of 10, and I think it's a very strong 9 out of 10, and I really do like this locomotive. It scores well, it's excellent running, very nice looking. It's a premium model, so you've got to pay a bit of a premium price for it, and that's probably something that hindered the initial models as well. They were seen as pricey, and if you do want to run them with DCC and control the pantograph, then there is the added cost for that as well. So probably falling a little bit down on the value side, but they are excellent models. And as I say, if you do get one of the new sound fitted versions, I think you're getting some pretty good value, and you're getting an excellent model for that price. Okay, so now we get to the recommendation. The Bachmann Class 90 is a superb model, and has been a pleasure and a relief to review a model that didn't have any issues requiring investigation or product support. Since my purchase, Bachmann have added new liveries and a cost-effective sound option on most models. The Class 90 is a premium model with excellent detail, a configurable motorised pantograph, and good lighting support. I'm not sure where the driver went, but that just aligns it with models from everybody else. I have no hesitation in recommending this model, and in particular the sound-equipped versions that would appear to offer the best overall value. There are bargains to be had second-hand on the earlier models, but do check that the motorised pantograph is still functional, as it could have been damaged by using an incorrect DCC decoder. If you have a Class 90, how have you found it? Please share your input and feedback in the comments, please. So we've come to the end of what has been one of the most pain-free reviews in recent times, and that tells a story in itself. Thanks for joining today, and I hope to see you on the next one in the near future. And in the meantime, take care and happy modelling.